Very important. All right, now we're recording. All right, welcome everybody. Good morning, afternoon, whatever it is. I just had Ben Van Camp with the Chamber here. Just wanted to offer a little welcome and just highlight a couple upcoming events that we have. I will probably miss some, in which case Jen will point that out to me, as she does. This Friday, we have our Chamber Chat Live. There'll be a focus on the arts. We'll be hearing from the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Committee on the Arts. And we will also be hearing from just about every arts venue and nonprofit in town. The Seacoast Rep, the Prescott Park Arts Festival, who just announced their summer musical, which I'm delighted about. It's Charlie Brown, I think that's public knowledge now. If not, it is right now. Who else? The Music Hall will be there. New Hampshire Theater Project. New Hampshire Arts Association, you name it, they're all going to be there. 3S, the whole group. So we're excited about that. That's this Friday at 1 o'clock. The Economic Outlook event we have scheduled. We haven't really formally announced that yet, but it will be the April the 6th. Is that right, Jen?
That sounds correct.
Yeah, April the 6th. It's going to be a streamed event from the Seacoast Repertory Theater. So our speakers will be mostly live at the theater with everybody else being streamed from home. So it should have a nice live event feel. And then we have recently scheduled on April the 14th, Governor Chris Sununu to join us for a State of the State address. So that'll be in the morning at 8:30. And it'll be a virtual event with him joining us via Zoom. So we're excited about all that. So today our topic is HR. And we have brought in one of a few experts we have in our membership in the HR space. And one of my favorites, it's Amy Cann with HR ROI Solutions. We've known Amy since she was like flying solo downtown. I remember doing the ribbon cutting where it was like just you. It was very cool. And you've like grown and you're doing good and you have people and you're doing all the right things. And she just took a midterm, so she's in school. She's doing it all. So I'll pass it over to Amy to lead us through this.
Thank you very much. Kind of screen share here, so hopefully you all can see my presentation. Okay, so it's a very small group. It's just a fascinating subject too, so I'm mystified why people don't want to learn more about this kind of thing. And you know, in this, I'm competing with weather, so you know, it's okay, I understand. And we're going to record it and share it. So you know, any form you listen to this, that's awesome. I tried to cover as many things as I could in the short amount of time without it being too overwhelming. Because we have a small group like live with us, please do not hesitate to stop me and jump in on any question, or if you want to share something that you found or learned as well. So please don't be shy. Just real quick, you know, the company, we do a lot, and I'm not going to go over every piece of it, but here's just like a overview of how many things we get into. And that's why we've been growing, because there's so many organizations that just have a variety of needs that touch on a lot of these subjects here. So just keep that in mind. We're happy to help organizations. And I'm also happy to follow up with any questions from the presentation too. So don't hesitate to email me later on, and we can certainly talk through anything that you have a question on. So I did this last night, just the word cloud for the heck of it, just to bring up, you know, some of the things that are in the presentation today. So you'll see kind of a little theme here: diversity, wellness, conversations, discrimination. So it's really a cross section today of topics. And if you let's see, I think we have someone that maybe is not on mute. If you could just mute yourself, if you wouldn't mind, just to make sure everyone can hear me okay. Not that I have a problem usually with being loud, but so this is just a quick cross section of what we're going to be talking about today. I thought we'd jump right into legal compliance, which is everyone's favorite. I think this is a great way to learn from the mistakes of others. So just quickly, last night I pulled up what's going on in just New Hampshire with the Federal Department of Labor. And these violations came up just in like the last 9 months or so. And some of these are very recent, just this year. So the problem is when you get a visit from the Department of Labor, or if like EEOC, the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, any one of those things, this is likely to go public. So your company is going to be publicly listed on the website, which is not good for many reasons, aside from the violations that you're going to be paying, like back wages, that kind of thing. So this is a restaurant group here. And if you click on this link, these are all hyperlinked. You can actually go to the site and you can actually look for state, year, topic of discrimination. And again, learn from others, see what they've done wrong and make sure you're not doing it as well. So this organization was primarily not paying people properly as hourly non-exempt workers. And you'll see here, we won't read through all the text of this, but it was related to the misclassification. They were not getting overtime based on the kind of work they were doing. Very, very, very common violation where companies think, well, geez, we'll just make you salaried and that'll solve that. You'll like that. You'll get one set amount of your money. We don't have to worry about overtime. And unfortunately, it's not often correct. You can't just make someone salaried. So you can delve into the pieces of that, but it goes around the Fair Labor Standards Act and making sure people are properly classified as salaried exempt. Or if not, if they don't meet their criteria, they have to be an hourly non-exempt worker, which means they are entitled to overtime. So very, very common. This one here, this is OSHA, the second one. And I think I have my pointer. Yeah. So the second one, this is OSHA violations. They continue to increase around the coronavirus and just not safe practices. So any concerns with this one here, please, take a look when you get the presentation. There's hyperlinks all in it, so you can click and read a little bit more about all the types of violations, but they generally are around respiration, lack of disinfection, PPE, masks, that type of thing. The third one, flooring company, back wages. This was related to quite a bit of money, actually, $250,000 in back wages. And it was probably related again to overtime. Yeah, it looks like straight time. They were paying people in straight time, unrecorded, not properly recording pay and timesheets, that kind of thing. Banking overtime hours too. So pretty common, again, violations here. And just because employers end up on here doesn't mean they're bad people or bad employers, but they're often just not well versed in the law and they do what seems to make sense, which, is often not going to be compliant. So again, learning from mistakes of others, very valuable. And it kind of goes on. This is one here, child labor law violation. I know a local city in New Hampshire also got in trouble recently for child labor law violations. They had a 14-year-old working around unauthorized equipment and the child was burnt. So you have to be really careful if you're working with workers under 18. There's a couple of concerns. One's hours, how many hours they can work, but also things that they can do or can't do. And one of the things that younger workers can't do are operate a lot of equipment where they might get burnt or cut. Cutting machines, slicing machines, fryers, those kinds of things are off limits for kids that are under 16 and often those that are even under 18. So make sure you do your due diligence there. This one down here, last one here, it's a hiring discrimination claim. Very common still to see either through the DOL, but also more likely through the EEOC, which is again is the Federal Equal Opportunity Employment Commission. And you find a lot of workers facing discrimination, either applicants, just trying to get the job, or as employees, and thousands of claims still each and every year. I teach an employment law class with UNH, and we're doing our second half of it this Friday. Last Friday, we talked about all the different types of claims, and there are things you'd expect: sexual harassment, pregnancy discrimination, still racial ones, still religion, disability, host of things that companies today are still doing wrong. And some of those are more intentional, whereas the wage and hour that a lot of these are usually lack of education or knowledge. So again, learning from the mistakes of others, that's theme one. And this one's just check your remote worker list twice. I was trying to think of a theme like Santa, check your list twice. And this is a neat link here. If you click on the link, it's going to take you to a work list that a bunch of attorneys put together that helps you think about things to consider if you have remote workers. I pulled a couple of the ones off of there, but I encourage you to take a look at it. One is formal policies. You have formal policies because it is an arrangement that can easily go sideways. So it's helpful to have expectations outlined, especially with professional conduct, hours that you expect people to be available. Drinking, don't know day drinking. Those kinds of things could be important. Also, you're not promising indefinite remote work. That's another area that companies could box themselves into if they set an expectation that it's forever. You always want to make it contingent on your business needs and also the employee's performance. Something also to consider, if people are remote, they may have really, spread around the country. So they're no longer under just New Hampshire law. If they're working from home, doing work for your business in their home, then they're under that state laws. Not if they're just commuting, but if they're actually working from home and doing business for you, you're under that state law now. So you want to make sure you're being compliant with those states. Workers' compensation, I hadn't thought about that before, but this checklist that I showed you here reminds you that you may want to change classifications for people so that you're not being overcharged, or that they're properly covered in the context they're in now. So a good idea to check with your insurance broker to see, and talk to your workers' comp company and see where people's classifications are for their jobs. It can save you money. You also want to make sure that you have the proper coverage. So a couple of reasons why you want to make sure you check that. And then this last one is regarding really employment posters, kind of a tie-in to the second one here. But again, even if you're still in New Hampshire, but people are just working remotely, a couple of things to think about. So I have a link down here if you're not sure what poster requirements are required for you. This handy link here goes to the Department of Labor website, and they will show you all the posters for federal. And there's a link in there to drill down to the state level as well. Because all the posters are free, but you may prefer to buy those that are like all in one, like a glossy, like JJ Keller. I know JJ Keller is probably the biggest company I can think of that provides the posters. You can certainly pay through JJ Keller. There's a benefit of having them all neatly grouped together, because believe me, as someone who has OCD, I have tried, and I'll still do it, getting all the posters and then putting together so it's like a patchwork that looks nice and doesn't overlap, and the employees can see all those posters. That's time consuming, maybe not the best use of your time. So getting a poster like something from JJ Keller could be, you pay for it, but the value there may be worth it for you. So side
Amy,
note there.
I just want
Sure.
to introduce your payroll companies may also offer that at a low or no cost. And it's worthwhile checking out with your payroll companies.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Yeah, so however you get them, just keep in mind a couple of things here. So the Department of Labor says that electronic posters are acceptable substitute if, and that's if all three of these are met. So all your employees are exclusive for home. All employees receive information from the employer via electronic means. So, that's a common way of communication. And then lastly, all employees have readily available access to them. So it could be your intranet, your internal internet of your company, external website, could be a shared network drive or file system, but you have to be able to access it without like notifying your boss about it. They don't want it to be one of the situations where employees are afraid to go check something out because, oops, my boss is going to know I'm checking labor posters, and that's it. And that's a deterrent there. So if you still have people on site, then you have to have posters still on site. So if you have people that don't ever come to the office, they have to get their posters electronically. So you may have to do both of those. And that's what the Department of Labor suggests, is really, unless you're all remote, you make sure you have them on site. And if people never come to the office, they need to be able to have them electronically. You can send them just to them, via email, or again, having them, readily accessible through some format of posting. And the rule is current and prominently available. Some of the posters don't require constant posting, but you do not want to even get into trying to determine what posters don't require constant posting, because it's just going to be a bigger headache than it's worth. So for all intents and purposes, I definitely recommend just treating like all posters need to be up at all times. And for the most part, that's most of the posters. There's a couple of exceptions. But again, you're going to really getting into the weeds if you go into that. So, checking on this link here, this walks you through all the posters. And to Tanya's point, you're able to get them somewhere else at lesser expense or free. But in any event, you want to make sure you're still current on your posters too. So this is helpful here. It gives you the day that it's revised, anything you need to know. It's helpful also just to see, kind of a quick check of what the law would be as well. So a couple different reasons why looking online can be very helpful. So that's my other kind of theme for today. And then another one is identity theft, which has been a huge problem. And it's because it's $1 billion business for these thieves. So it's not going to go away. They're just looking for more and more ways to steal our information. And the biggest theme right now has been really the fraudulent unemployment claims. There's been millions and millions of dollars paid out. And the IRS is actually involved because it's taxable. Unemployment benefits are actually taxable. So what's happening is people are getting this IRS form 1099-G, which means that unemployment taxes were paid out. And if you're like, well, I didn't get unemployment benefits, then you definitely bet, right there, you're flagged that, you've had identity theft in some form, that someone's actually collecting unemployment benefits in your name. So there's different ways that they recommend addressing this. If you suspect that you have fraudulent unemployment claims, tell your employer, HR, payroll immediately. Notify the state employment office. Here's the hyperlink here for New Hampshire. And there's a little blurb here about the security alert that they want people to know about. You're also going to need to let your financial institutions know, because you don't know the breadth of the violation. And you don't want to just assume like, oh, it's just my unemployment claim that they've taken advantage of, when they maybe have other information to get into your accounts at all. So notifying financial institutions. The FBI encourages you to do an internet crime complaint. And here's a link for the FBI's site. Any internet crime, they really want to know about that, so they can try to go after whoever's doing it. So that's helpful. Notifying major credit bureaus is also helpful. Here's hyperlinks for the big 3 ones. You can let them know that there may have been fraud. They can also put a flag or hold in your account too. And actually, this is a preventative measure we'll talk about in a second too. You can actually make it so that no one can apply for credit without your authorization, which could be a really good preventative measure. But if you think it's already happened, you need to notify the credit report bureaus as well. Federal Trade Commission, they also have identity theft information, guidance, and reporting mechanism. And then lastly, the IRS. Again, those unemployment benefits are taxable. You do not want to be paying taxes on unemployment benefits that you did not receive. So the IRS has a method for you to complete an affidavit so they can remove that from your tax obligations. And so it's such a headache. It's so unfortunate that we're having to deal with these kinds of things. But like I said, it's $1 billion business. People are not going to stop doing this, and they're just getting smarter and smarter. So just be aware, share this information with others if you know of anyone that's experienced this too. If there's any questions, I'm just going to kind of keep an eye, and I see chat. Oh yeah, so yep, so someone listed oh, Pat. Yeah, Pat's in the call. Yeah, so that's great. That's awesome too. So those are good prices too, Pat, on that. So any other questions, just jump in. Just real quickly, you wonder, how does identity theft actually happen? And the consensus is it's a variety of different ways. So it could be online purchase of stolen information. So someone has stole your information with the purpose of reselling it to others. Could be previous data breaches. We've heard of tons of companies that had data breaches, and they collect that information, and they may not have identity theft problem at the moment. They may hoard that information and then choose to sell it, up to the point 1, when they want to. And so you may have, your information may have been stolen, your social security number, date of birth, name, 3 years ago. And now it's coming up now because now is the time they want to use it. Computer intrusions, of course, anything that's able to get into your system, very dangerous. Great reasons why you need to be super diligent about anything you click or go to. Cold calling victims, this happens a lot with seniors, you hear about too, but this can happen even if you're just rushed, distracted. So be on the lookout for that. Email phishing schemes, of course, there's a lot of that. Physical theft of data, of course, actually stealing it physically. And then people can pull things from websites and social media accounts too. And they have a way where they just really go through, they have programs that just are designed to pick up information. I forget the term, but for example, a lot of nonprofits will have their board of directors on their sites with their emails. And I'm on several boards and for nonprofits, including the treasurer of one. And it never fails. I get something from someone, the president, who's telling me that they need to make a purchase and they needed me to send the credit card to them via snapshot of my phone. Like, it's like, how stupid do they think you are? Well, they figure like if it works with one person, it's worth it. It's really so frustrating. But again, you know, they try everything. So just be on alert for all these. Here's a hyperlink to a little bit more information as well on that. And then down here is just New Hampshire privacy laws. And I just wanted to include New Hampshire's privacy law because if you're an employer and this happens to, you know, there is a requirement for notification of a security breach. So if it happens to you, you're going to need to make sure you're notifying employees as well. And you're compliant with what the law says that you need to do for notification and prevention for them. So, and then lastly, you know, just education, prevention. You know, the more you can learn about it, here's a really neat guide to businesses. It's very thorough. It goes through a lot of different mechanisms and how you can protect yourself too. And then just overall education, prevention. This one up here at the top is more geared towards employees and individuals. So it could be something that'd be very helpful to share with your workforce, family, and friends, just so we could all be diligent and, you know, stop these people from, you know, what they're doing. But again, it's such a moneymaker for them that, you know, they're going to keep trying and it's just going to be relentless. So just be super aware of that whole topic around identity theft. Any questions on that? I'm certainly not an expert. I am in law school and focusing on privacy law is going to be one of them, which is kind of reason why I was interested in this topic, but I know it's a big problem. But any questions anyone can think of right now? Okay.
I have a question. I have a question on workers' compensation. Amy?
Sure.
There are a lot of new businesses out there that are doing everything they should be doing to hire their first employee, and they start paying them, and they never get workers' comp. So I have one in particular that needs to go up in front of DOL and explain why he didn't get it. He got it as soon as he got the notice, but it was now they're talking about penalties for the time he didn't have. What would you suggest to smaller companies who have that, they're facing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think, you know, get the coverage as soon as possible and ask for forgiveness. There's not much you can do. It's a strict liability rule. I mean, you can't say you didn't know, unfortunately. So I think just getting as compliant as possible, as soon as possible, and asking for forgiveness there. And I think I'm going to be doing like a top 10 violations again. I do that a couple times a year. See if I can find top 10, pardon me, a minute one. Searching here, there are, New Hampshire does a really great one, DOL violations. I know we have it in our files too. See if I can just get the link for you guys really quickly here. I think that's it. Yeah, so let me just put this in chat really quickly. And I think sharing this, you know, just sharing what you know with others as they start businesses is, you know, one of the things we can do to help educate people. So if you want to click on this link in chat, it's the top 10 New Hampshire labor law violations. And one of them is workers' compensation. That's number 8. So sharing that information, we're going to do a presentation on that sometime the next probably month or 2. So, you know, keeping an eye out for that. If you go to our website, you can sign up for our blog and you'll get a, and we don't inundate things on that, but you'll get a notice about that. Or emailing me if you want to be listed, and we're happy to let you know when we do that free webinar. But we'll cover in depth those labor law violations that are happening. So yeah, there's not much you can do at this point. It's already happened, unfortunately, other than ask for forgiveness and, you know, and pledge to be, you know, legally compliant. Do your research. Share that fact sheet with him or her. So that they have it going forward and they know they don't misstep anywhere else. So that was the more somber, you know, stuff, mistakes, compliance, people stealing our stuff and all. But I thought, you know, then we'll move on to like a little bit happier stuff. But even then, not completely, unfortunately. It's been a really difficult year, last 12 months or so, as everyone knows. But I think this is the year where we really have to start thinking differently and being creative and, not just doing things the way we've always done it. I think that's really, really critical. So I wanted to talk about that briefly as well. And I think one of the things you can do is really be very people focused. And hopefully this image here is not creepy, because I'm looking at it now, I'm like, could be a little creepy actually. Last night I thought, oh, that looks good, but now I'm not so sure. But the idea here is really just to be people focused. And I mean intentional. We all, like people, most of us, and most of the time, but we're not always intentional about it. What I mean by intentional is really deliberately connecting with the people that you work with and finding out, listening to them and creating programs that are going to really work, for them to help them. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But, and also part of it is really the candidate experience. So not just the folks we already have on board, really focusing on being intentional, for them and really prioritizing people when they're on board, but it's also the candidate experience. Because I don't know about any of you, but I've been doing some recruiting lately for different clients, and there's so much ghosting. We've heard this term for quite a while now. It could be ghosting in different formats, but often in this case, it's applicants that just don't answer when you call them, or don't show up for the interview, or worse, they don't show up for the job after a job offer. So we have to be really careful that we create the best candidate experience for those that are out there to make sure we're attracting the best candidates. And so again, that's being very people focused too, making it personal, giving them a call, being open and letting them ask questions and sharing and letting them get a sense of your culture so you can really engage with them. Companies that still treat applicants like they're doing them a favor are not going to get the best people out there. It's a two-way process. And, in fact, right now it's more employers having to sell candidates on why they should come work for them. So just be really cognizant of whoever's doing the candidate and applicant interviewing between the posting itself, any reviews are out there about your company, addressing that, and then the first interaction all the way to the last step. Make sure you're being intentional about the people focus there. And I think sharing information cannot be underrated, so that people really understand like what they're facing with your organization. If they come to work for you, there's no surprises, and you're not just putting like the good face on and hiding anything that's going to be a challenge for them. Just be really open about that and let them get a sense of your culture. So I think it's, again, the applicants, candidates, and then it's the people that are already on board, just being really intentional about that. And, part of that is just being intentional about, diversity and equity and inclusion, and changing the conversation. Diversity shouldn't be a session that everyone's made to attend that really harps on them how they shouldn't be harassing other people. You don't want to make it into a negative word that ends up being resentful. It really should be, striving to hire people that represent diversity. But when you're on board, you really need to focus about the equity part of it and inclusion. And inclusion is really like taking a puzzle pieces and putting that puzzle together. So diversity is kind of like the different puzzle pieces, but inclusion is putting it all together into an actual puzzle for your organization. And that means asking, involving people, cross-functional teams, and getting people to feel like they have a voice, because a lot of times companies hire for diversity and they check that box off and move on. But in the end, they don't have women in their senior teams. They don't have people of color. They don't have people with disabilities, because it sounds like that's going to be too much trouble for them. They don't have different representations of people from different backgrounds, economic, educational, and that's diversity. It's not just one category. It's really a cross section, sexual orientation, the whole spectrum, what we mean, and hiring those kinds of people. But once they're here, you have to do something with them, and that's again being intentional. And equity, this is a thing you need to think about going forward, because like if you have health insurance that you're offering for every single person, that's not equity, because every single person may not need health insurance, and employees have different needs. So thinking about different benefits that could be offered to people that are equitable, maybe dollar amount wise, they're the same, but they're allowing them to customize what they need Maybe it's a childcare credit. Maybe the person doesn't need health insurance, but they really desperately need a childcare credit, or, whatever it might be, tuition assistance and paying their tuition for school or after. So I encourage you to think about equity. Again, it's not making everything equal. It's about, raising the playing field for everyone so that everyone has an opportunity to have the same opportunity. And we're not coming from the same playing field. So you have to be mindful of that when you offer benefits and different hiring processes and everything with what you do in an organization. It's just, we're not coming from the same playing field. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that little image before where it's like a baseball field and there's 3 people standing there, and the tall person can see over it, the middle person can just barely, and the smaller person can't. And then, what happens is, you put blocks there under the people so they're able to all have the same view. And that's kind of what you're trying to do here is create an equitable environment. So this is a whole days of conversation, really. We may offer something about this later on, but in the meantime, there's a ton of information out there that you can take part of too. And I have a hyperlink in this presentation for almost any page has a hyperlink. And there's one in there where you can read a little bit more about, what you can do differently to really address the equity and inclusion piece.
Amy, quick, just insert. One of the things that I'm finding a lot of clients are looking at, and I'm finding a lot of nonprofits are also offering, from an equity and inclusion standpoint, we are looking oftentimes for minimum criteria of candidates to come in with a college degree or an associate's degree. And one of the things that a lot of companies offer as a benefit is tuition reimbursement. However, that's something that we need people to come into the job with. It's something very attractive and worth looking into from a financial perspective, that student loan reimbursements or forgiveness plans might be a benefit that companies want to consider, given, that's oftentimes a barrier to entry for a lot of socioeconomic groups, as well as young students or young professionals coming into the workplace. That's one of the number one debts that they're coming into the workplace with. And the IRS is slow in publishing a lot of guidelines around how that could, that reimbursement program can be a, tax benefit or have some tax benefits associated with it. But I highly encourage businesses to look at offering this, and can be something introduced as part of their equity and inclusion conversations, but something worth looking into if you're finding that is a demographic that you're looking to go after, more entry level, requiring college degrees or associate's degrees.
Yep, definitely. Student loans is another one of the creative benefits there that companies can look at. Even if you're an old professional like me, because I have my MBA, I'm still paying off, and now I have my law school. So I'd also love that, though. I'm not working for a company in that kind of context, but I would also appreciate that kind of benefit too, because a lot of people are returning to school or have finished school in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and we have people in their 60s at law school right now. So yes, absolutely.
And it can be used as a retention tool as well, where tuition reimbursement is oftentimes a one and done. And if they do lose, trying to recoup those funds are challenging, but student loan forgiveness can be done on a month-to-month basis. So consider looking more into that. Yeah,
absolutely. Yep. And then another thing that we found too is that just engagement wise, so on the same theme of intentional people focused, one of it is they want to see companies speak up too. And so this recent LinkedIn survey shows that when companies speak on current events, candidates are engaging more because again, you're trying to attract people over to your organization. It's not the same as it used to be with just an ad and okay, well, they're applying, we'll screen out who we don't like, and we'll get back to those that, we're interested in. You need to change that whole approach there. And one thing you can do really is start telling people who your company is and what you believe and what your culture is. And so they found a huge difference between companies that posted COVID-19 in April, companies posting about diversity, more engagement from candidates out there. And, younger generations might be more engaged with some of these topics, but it doesn't mean that older generations like myself and Gen X aren't interested in companies that also speak and tell you what they feel about events and how they feel about diversity. Because, again, it's one of the changes that we need to make to become more people focused, is to become more real and don't be afraid to speak out about things. Is that going to turn off some people? Yes, but will they be the people that you want to hire anyway? Probably not. Whatever your culture is, that's what you really should be promoting. And of course, always being respectful. You don't want to get into a disagreement on LinkedIn or something like that, but don't be afraid to speak out so people understand where you're coming from. And that just attracts people more to companies. So on the flip side of that, the surveys have also found that diversity is still not being addressed on the talent management side by managers. And I've seen this a bit sometimes too, where candidate or managers make a decision that someone's not suitable because of age or disability or some other factor. And that's, it's not legal to approach it that way. You can't just screen people out on the basis of protected classes. It really needs to be who's the best candidate for the position, experience, education, and making those kinds of decisions. So just be mindful of whoever is doing the hiring, your hiring managers, that you have conversations with them about not just what's legal for discussions, but also that they're truly giving people an opportunity to be considered as a candidate and a hire for your organization. And you're not kind of running two parallel approaches where, you're maybe your senior management and HR, whoever, is very like, yes, diversity, inclusion, equity is super important, but yet it's not sold across the team. And there's some people that are not on board with that for whatever reason. So, and that's the disconnect that you see here in this short survey. So again, things to be thinking about for this year and every other year after that. Another thing that's important really is just listening to what people are saying. And there's a whole bunch of quotes on communication and the problems with what you're not hearing and how that leads to problems in the organization. So be really mindful that you're encouraging people to share, and you're not doing things that discourage that sharing, and you're not inadvertently discouraging communications. That open door policy really needs to be important. It could be a survey that you do, or it could just be getting everyone together and saying, hey, I want to hear your thoughts about what you think about this new process, this new software, maybe new benefits you can consider for next year. What benefits are you interested in? And, not promising anything, but wanting to hear conversations so you can make a better educated decision with your organization. So I think listening is an art that we're all still working on, and we're better at it at different times than others. So just be mindful about the power of listening to what's being said and what your employees are not saying, and that can be very very telling. So to that point, this survey showed, and this was about, oh gosh, they had like 40,000 people completed this survey with hundreds of different companies involved, and this is something that's always not being either listened to, or employees are just afraid to share it. But they found that overwhelmingly, this is really taking a toll on people. And you see here, the little black dots mean people are exhausted. And we see, women, over 50% of the respondents are showing that they're at a level of exhaustion. Male senior managers also, a pretty significant level of exhaustion. We see burnt out. I mean, look at these numbers for so many people. We have people of color, Black men and women over here too, have kind of an extra layer of challenge at times, facing discrimination on top of the COVID-19 challenges, on top of expectations that are not always realistic. I've seen this a couple times being consulting now, where companies that are emailing people on the weekends and expecting people to work really essentially 7 days a week, because that senior person's doing that. That's the CEO is on 7 days a week, and he or she's behavior sets the expectation that everyone else needs to be on 7 days a week. And it's a vicious circle that you get into, and you have to be very mindful of the fact that you shouldn't be expecting people to work 7 days a week. But if they see you doing that, some people are going to feel obligated to do the same thing. I have one client, he shuts down at 5 p.m. If I email him, text, anything like that, I will not hear from him until the next business day. And I really appreciate the fact he encourages that work-life balance for all his employees, because he sets the example. And it's too often where that top person doesn't set that example, and people follow, by example. And, that's one of the reasons why this kind of thing happens. So, back to this slide here, listening to people, understanding what's going on with them. It's really important, because you don't want this. This is not going to be an organization. All these folks are working for different companies, but even a couple of these people, even one in your organization is too much. And it's going to take your toll at some point. Either the person's going to leave or something's going to fall through the cracks. And it's just not a good feeling for any organization to have in there. So, take some time to think about these slides. Again, hyperlinks in here takes you to this whole study, which is really great. It does break it down a lot more, so you can understand a little bit more behind some of this. And we know that millions of parents had to leave the workforce too, because of the remote school challenges and COVID-19. These are folks that are pretty much still in the workforce, but doing double duty. And I'm lucky my daughter's in high school, so I don't need to be teaching her in her classes and all. She's still remote, but I'm so fortunate, and others are not like that, and they're burning the candle on both ends. So that's one problem. And I think it leads into, again, that burnout and how we're overlooking the work home health being very critical, family life balance there. Some of it's COVID-19, absolutely, but other times it's just, again, that kind of expectation that you have to be on all the time. This is very problematic for hourly employees too, especially if they're not recording their time. Some companies are getting into trouble and getting fined because their hourly people are checking emails and doing work and making phone calls off the clock on the weekends or in the evenings. They weren't asked to, but they're doing it because they're dedicated, or other times they're doing it because it seems to be expected from them, but they're not recording their time. Well, if you have any reason or should have either knew or should have known that someone was working off the clock, you're going to be liable for that. So make sure you're not encouraging it. If it's necessary, they're reporting their time, they're getting paid for that time. You really want to kind of have a no work after 5 or 6 or no weekend policy. I know some companies or countries in Europe have those policies. There's one in particular, I'm going to guess, I pick France, but I don't think maybe it's not France, but it could be Italy. I know there's one country that passed something where you cannot contact employees after hours, but I don't see the US ever going that far. But it's just not healthy if they're burning it on both ends like that. So to that point, we're going to just kind of focus on the last few sections here. And the ghosting.
Amy, can I just interject one?
Sure.
So one of the things that we find when working with clients, and this is oftentimes something that spurs us coming in there, or somebody asking us to come in there, we want to make sure that employees don't feel pressured to make a decision between being a great employee or being a great parent, caregiver, spouse, significant other, what have you, and allowing employees and managers and supervisors find ways to allow them to do both. And sometimes there's very simple solutions. Maybe it's a broken out schedule during the day, work share, flexible working arrangements. But you've already invested a significant amount of time and money in training your employees. And we all know metrics and returns on investments with respect to hiring and turnover. And it's a worthwhile investment to at least explore options on how to help employees, at least temporarily, not go through the COVID fatigue, because everybody's in it. And you saw Amy's, highlighted areas. It's all throughout sections, male, female, parent, not student, those types of things. So finding a way to not have employees be forced to make that choice is critical for employers to know.
Yeah, and another point too. Oh, does someone have a comment?
Well,
Yeah,
you
please.
can respond, but I wanted to, I've seen a few companies where they don't track vacation time. It's like, take whatever you want, as long as you get your job done, we don't really care. And that's always intrigued me, because that's, the model. I know sometimes I'm going to have to work 60 hours a week, and sometimes I'm going to, maybe it's 30 hours the next week, whatever. Has that catching on, or is there pitfalls with that are not apparent? Or
I could
Yeah,
jump in on that.
I just wrote a policy for another client on that this week on unlimited PTO time. And it's a great benefit to offer, but just know that, you want to make sure you have regular check-ins with those folks too. And you really should be doing that anyway, but regular check-ins just to make sure that the quality of work, productivity of work is still clear, because that's a risk if people have unlimited time, is that there could be some decrease in focus on or increase in business disruptions because of that. So just make sure that people are aware that you want to encourage work-life balance. You have to still maintain performance expectations, and that you set the example there for feedback and clarity of expectations, just so there's no trouble with that going forward. Tanya, do you have something you wanted to add to that?
On top of that, you want to make sure that you identify any compensable impact. So if you're transitioning from a compensable paid time off, where somebody's paid accrued but unused time off upon separation, you want to make sure that you've got clean books entering into this new arrangement if you're converting, so that you don't have an event that occurs that somebody says, oh, by the way, you owe me for 800 hours of paid time off that was never recognized or paid out. So make sure you're taking a look at that and working with your HR resource and your finance team to make sure you're aware of all of those things and clearly communicate that. But focus on the deliverables and the expectations that are required, so that those are being met and others in the work group may not be burdened by somebody's frequent absences.
Right, and like something like Massachusetts, where this client is actually based, wages, pay and vacation time and PTO, unless it's specifically marked as sick time for PTO, is wages once it's accrued to the employee. So you can't just take it away. So yeah, you have to be considerate about the transition, how you put these plans into place. New Hampshire at this point, and there's legislation pending, but I don't see it going forward to, in fact, I think it's already moved to being found as not expedient to legislate, but as far as New Hampshire saying that vacation time is wages, it's not in New Hampshire as long as the employer is very clear about their policy, either in writing or practice. And you really want to have it in writing and make sure you're following that same practice. And you discuss how that's handled. So yeah, that, and if you previously said it's, upon payout, that could be a transition you need to consider. So, but I think it does send a message, Ben, back to the whole idea of it. And that's what we're trying to do is look for new ways to do things that are better for everyone. The organization's better because morale is better. People are more engaged. They don't want to leave your company because you're offering something better than anyone else can. You're offering, them a life that they can enjoy as well as work they can enjoy. So it's really, and the health, you don't want to overlook that. And to that point, I know I'd be mindful of time. Just want to talk a little bit about this. Telehealth, it's a great option. Most insurance plans have it, and there's some standalone options too if yours doesn't have it. But I think telehealth is awesome. I have used it a number of times because my schedule's pretty complicated. And then prior to that, a couple years, longer than that back, I was on the road a lot. And so using telehealth can be a great way to connect, keep your health in the forefront without having to take time off work, go to the doctor's office, come back. That can be a deterrent for people, and they just like, I'll worry about it later. Telehealth, super easy to set up. You can do it on the spot. And then talking to that doctor, there's so many amazing things they can do. They can actually connect, like over here, you see this guy doing the blood pressure, but there's some systems I know where they can, it can sense like your heartbeat. There's Bluetooth enabled pieces that this is just going to be amazing. And it's already pretty awesome. And then the doctor can convey to the employee or you how important coming in person may actually be. It's better to hear it from your physician than just some person, HR or whoever it is, trying to convince them their family member or whatever. Hearing it from a professional may be more convincing if they actually need to come in. So encouraging telehealth, promoting information about your insurance plan or any other telehealth options out there would be really a great benefit. And then the EAP programs, I'm a big advocate of these. Sometimes they're bundled in with your disability life insurance. Other times you may want to go directly to a different source. Here's a couple here that you can check out that offer programs. And essentially it's a voice that is available 24/7 to help the person if they're in depression or having a legal issue, financial issue, relationship problem, just see someone to talk to who's going to point them in the right direction. And then often the EAPs have 3 or 4, maybe 5 counseling appointments available at no cost. So they're a great way to get people to assistance, and maybe in the pathway to assistance, they're already getting that help. Maybe it's just to get them to that help. Either way, EAP programs are really, really valuable. And I'm just going to skip ahead to this one now. If you can't afford it to an EAP program for your company because you need to really focus on the budget or whatever reason, just know that 211 is a great resource too. It functions sort of like an EAP program for free. Each state has it. And again, the link's in there. You'll see when you go to the link, they have it broken down. There's COVID-19 resources still right now. Someone needs help paying their bills, if it's mental health, if they need to look for local resources too. And it's a system that's, there's like 14 million people that have used it in the last year or so alone. And it's a system set up in each and every state. So it's pretty cool. It really connects you with local resources. So I always I always put this information out to my old companies, and now with social media and wherever I always promote 211 or 211 because it's a free resource for companies and it can really help employees get the help they need. So that's what EAPs are designed to do. But the advantage of 211 is it also connects you with local resources where an EAP may not have them as readily available. And then tied into an EAP program, or maybe standalone, would be like a wellness program. And we used to use a Lawson group for my company. I worked at Lars for 12 years, and they were fantastic with such a creative wellness program they put together with us. Whatever time and effort you have, budget-wise, they work with you. And we had smoking cessation. We also offered smoking hypnosis sessions too with another provider. We had some fitness challenges we did. It was really pretty cool. So checking out wellness providers, a little bit different focus than an EAP program, but also super great resources, not very expensive resources for employers to create. Again, 211's awesome resource. Then do-it-yourself options too. Gail, who's one of our teammates there, she put some of these together for another talk we had earlier this year. And she's a big fan of Peloton. They have all kinds of fitness programs that you can do, not just the expensive bike, but they have other things. I use Insight. It's a funny name to it, Insight Timer, but it's a meditation app. And it's got all these calming music. My daughter makes fun of me because I'm always playing calming music in the background. And right now, the one I like to play is this heartbeat one that sounds very calming. But check it out. They have talks from people too to really help you. And these are free resources you can send out. Insight Timer doesn't cost anything. We also have Fire TV at home that has all these cool free apps that you can do to exercises. So these are low to free resources that you can help in your employees or yourself. Don't forget yourself. That's really critical. You'd be able to utilize. So another one I just want to point out is money. Money is a huge stress. Recent surveys show that 72% of adults feel stressed about money, whether it's worrying about the rent day to day, or being bogged down by debt, or never being able to retire. I think America is known for we are more of an instant satisfaction kind of country. We don't really plan ahead. There's exceptions, and I envy those folks, but we're more of a instant kind of satisfaction state or country. So not the best. So I'm a member of Northeast Credit Union. Our business is through them as well. And I went on there last night because I knew they had resources. And this is a free thing they have. And others, I'm sure, will have this as well, because they want their members to manage their money better, because that way there's more money in your bank account. So it's kind of like a self-serving interest. But nevertheless, there's some really cool options here. Just really quickly, for Northeast Credit Union, they have managing debt information, coaches, how to manage your debt, how to reduce your debt. Some really awesome resources. And last thought on that, I used to have a 401k provider come in, and he would do educational talks too about debt management with people. So you may have a resource yourself that to come in. If you have an EAP program or wellness program, they can connect with you. Or if you have a 401k plan, reach out to whoever's administrating it and ask if they can come in and do a talk about ways for people to save for retirement, manage their debt. So, use those, tap into those free resources for company or for employees too, to talk about this, because it is a really big problem. With barely any time to spare, that's a quick overview of things we think that companies should be talking about today. Legal compliance, as some evidenced earlier, is not going away. In fact, it's tightening up even more. So really important. And then just changing the way you think about what can be done and being creative, focusing on people and offering people resources so they can keep their physical health, their mental health, and their spirit strong for you. And that will help you retain those folks too. Is there any questions at all that you might have for Tanya or I?
That was a lot.
Yeah, I know. And I struggle with, do I pick one thing, go like really in depth and then lose people, or do I try to like cover like overview? So, Ben's going to share this with everyone. All the hyperlinks are in there. I encourage you to take some time and, just do some research, reading, educate yourself on that. If you have questions, follow up with me. There are hyperlinks to our LinkedIn pages here. So connect with us that way, and maybe pop to our site, which is LinkedIn here, and sign up for our newsletter so you know about our next free complimentary sessions. I know we're going to do one on top 10 wage violations really soon. So I thank you for your time. I hope you all have a great day, and hope you get a chance to go outside and enjoy it.
Yes, thank you, Amy. Really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Amy. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.